I'm Insomniac, and this is the Beekman by Timex and Todd Snyder.
Who are you?
Insomniac.
Okay, before we get this review started, big shout out to Steve. He actually sent in the last watch that you saw reviewed in this channel, the Ball and Spectre, I believe it was. He's also lent a bunch of other watches back earlier on in the channel that I reviewed, so very cool. Also, 2 more watches that are coming up on the channel he lent for review, so really cool. If somebody besides Steve would like to loan some watches for review here on the channel, email me at shouldItimethis@gmail.com. I will let you know where to send the watches. They will be reviewed, insured, and sent back. Okay, let's get into the Beekman. The case on the Beekman is your classic vintage style round case, small lugs, polished all the way around except for the case back. The most interesting thing about the case, in my opinion, is the fact that between the upper and lower angles of the sides of the case and the tall domed acrylic crystal, the side profile literally looks like an old-time rendition of a flying saucer. There's nothing really special about the lug shape or machining of the case. It's all neat enough, but at the same time does have a kind of budget look and feel to it. Case back is brushed stainless with various information about the watch nicely engraved into it. The crown on this watch is plain looking without anything of interest on the face, but the size and positioning of the crown is perfect and actually has very good grip. Simply put, there's nothing really special about this case. It's just a clean, simple, classic style case. The dial on this watch is really cool. It's playful without being childish or cheesy, and it has a cool 60s vintage vibe to it. The base of the dial is a simple matte black. At the outermost edge of the dial, you have a tiny but legible telemeter scale. Under that, you have an equally tiny minute track just above the large hour indices, which are presented as lume-filled triangles for each odd hour and actual numerals for each even hour. The intersection of the dial has the Timex name and a clean font under the 12. Then taking up the whole center of the dial, you have a funky spiral-shaped tachymeter scale. All of that has excellent contrast in whites and seafoam-esque greens against the black dial. And despite having these 2 scales on the dial, it's not visually cluttered or busy, so really good layout here. The hands on this watch match the dial aesthetic and vibe perfectly. Broad polished hour and minute hands filled with generous amounts of lume which come to sharp points at the ends, and a sporty red stick style second hand with a small counterbalance which really adds a standout touch to the dial. Not only does this handset look good on this dial, but the hands are a perfect length with the minute and second hands reaching all the way out to that minute track. This section of the review is the one place where the score is going to take a bit of a hit. I mentioned earlier that this watch has a tachymeter scale and a telemeter scale, both of which are cool complications to have on a watch, but as most of you know, these are timed functions. They belong on a chronograph style watch. On this piece, you can't start or stop or reset the second hand, so these scales really aren't practically usable on this watch at all. Aesthetically, they look cool on the style, but functionally, they make no sense here. Telling the time in the dark with this watch is very easy and 100% reliable. And you might be thinking, how can that be? Lume has to be charged, so if you weren't in a bright space to begin with, or you're in the dark for an extended period of time, there's no way that you'll be able to tell the time easily. Well, you'd be right in terms of the lume itself, although I will say that the lume-filled hour markers and hands do have a nice even glow to them. What makes this watch a breeze to use in the dark is the old Timex party trick, featured on a lot of Timex pieces, Indiglow. You press the crown and the entire dial lights up on command, so as long as the battery isn't dead, you can literally always tell the time in the dark despite whether or not you have a solid lume charge. As stated in the dial section, there's a lot going on with this dial because of the tachymeter and telemeter scales, but somehow they work here without cluttering the dial. And as mentioned in that section, the hands are pointy and a perfect length for this dial. Add to that the excellent contrast that the polished lume-filled hands have against the black backdrop, and the only thing that keeps this watch from getting a perfect score here is how absolutely tiny the indices are on the minute track. Overall, it's very easy to tell the time on this watch at a quick glance. Accuracy with this watch is as perfect as you could expect from a solid quartz movement. I set the time about a week ago when the watch was dropped off, and it's still dead on accurate to the minute. The only reason we're not seeing a perfect score here is for the same reason you hear me knock down almost every quartz watch on this channel, the look of the movement. The stops of the deadbeat second hand are lazy and springy in some positions, and the second hand doesn't always land on an index, which makes the movement look cheap despite being so consistent. The strap on this watch is one of the only things I didn't like about it from the start. Aesthetically, it's perfect. In fact, this 60s vintage-esque aesthetic is probably the best setting I've seen for a faux alligator pattern leather strap. The black color is perfect with the dial, and the buckle matches the polished case perfectly and has the Timex brand nicely engraved into it. The free loops hold the excess strap in place perfectly throughout the day. The strap has quick releases so you don't need to use a spring bar tool to get the strap off, and the strap is comfortable on the wrist. So you're probably thinking, what could he possibly not like about the strap then? It's the overall quality of the strap. It feels thin and papery, almost like soft cardboard rather than leather. And if you look here, where the holes are, you'll see that it's already really creased. And keep in mind, this watch was dropped off brand new. So this is the amount of wear and creasing that happened in literally about a week, which means this strap probably won't last too long if you wear this watch every day. Luckily, straps are cheap and easy to change, so not a huge deal, and again, minus the quality of the strap, it's a perfect aesthetic match for this watch. Last we have value. Currently this watch sells for $158. That's on the high side for a quartz watch in my opinion, but I think in this particular case, you're getting a nice watch for the money. Yes, it's quartz, but in this case, that also equals dead on accurate. And aesthetically, you're getting a nice casual watch with vintage vibes and fun but mature looks that honestly look good with almost anything. Personally, I enjoyed my time with this watch, so if you were to buy one of these for $158, I don't think you'd feel like you overpaid for it. Well, again, a big thank you to Steve for dropping this watch off brand new for me to check out and review. It was definitely a cool piece, fun times. Again, email me if anybody watching has anything that you'd like to see reviewed on the channel. Definitely show some love down in the comments, share, like, subscribe, all that stuff you hear YouTube people saying all the time. Do all that stuff on this channel too. And I'll see you all at the next one.